Luke 2, verse 25. Let's read down to verse 28. Okay? Now there was a man in Jerusalem whose name was Simeon, and this man was righteous and devout, waiting for the consolation of Israel, and the Holy Spirit was upon him. So, what's it saying? It's saying now. Maybe this is like describing something that's happening at the same time as what we just read. This idea that Jesus had been born, he's 8 days old, then they take him for the day of purification, the day where they take him to the temple and offer a sacrifice and offer him, kind of symbolically, they call him holy to the Lord. Okay. Now, there was a man in Jerusalem, so we have the where, right? We have Mary and Joseph coming to Jerusalem. We have a man who's in Jerusalem. And his name was Simeon. So Simeon is a new character. We don't know much about Simeon. This man was righteous and devout. Righteous and devout. So the word righteous, we know it means not a sinner, not a depraved character, right? It can be used several different ways in the scriptures, but we know basically he's a good dude. We kind of learned the same thing about Elizabeth and Zechariah, right? Okay, righteous and devout, waiting for the consolation of Israel. What? What is the consolation of Israel? Well, what does consolation mean, right? If you want to win, if you try really hard and you get beaten, if you lose, they say, oh, well, here's a consolation prize. Here's like you have been beat down, but here's the thing that is going to console you. Here's the thing that is going to comfort and lift you up out of that grief. And so the consolation of Israel is I'm not entirely sure. Maybe this was a well-known phrase, like the consolation of Israel. This is when God lifts us up. When think about Elizabeth back when she was barren and she never had kids, and everyone around her, she felt like they kind of looked at her with a little bit of judgment. But then she said, but now the Lord has turned his face towards me. You almost get the picture, I get the impression, the whole country, the whole nation, whether it's being oppressed by the Romans or whether it's just the fall of their city or, just all these prophecies, these promises that God had made that just didn't seem to have come true yet. They're waiting for the Lord to turn his face to them and show them favor. They're waiting for the Messiah. They're waiting for the rescuer. He's waiting for the consolation of Israel. This is what he's doing. He's just waiting for God to work. And the Holy Spirit was upon him. What? So there's some kind of very, very present leading and moving and filling and directing where God, the Spirit, is upon this man. What is that like? What does it feel like? What is going to happen when this happens, right? And it had been revealed to him by the Holy Spirit that he would not see death before he had seen the Lord's Christ. Okay, remember the word Christ is the title. It's the rescuer. It's the one, the anointed one, the one chosen by God to set right all the wrongs, to set free the people from their enemies and from their sins, right? So this man, Simeon, is in Jerusalem. The Holy Spirit is on him, and it's been shown to him that he's not going to die until he literally sees the Lord's Christ, the one that God has appointed to be the rescuer. Okay. And he came in the Spirit into the temple. So we have this road, this whole journey, this whole man's life that we barely know anything about. We know he's a great dude. We know he's righteous and devout, right? So he is seeking the Lord in prayer and in fasting and in the religious practices that were considered devout. That this man has received a word from the Lord. The Spirit of God has spoken to him specially and said, you will not die until you see the Lord's Christ. And then there's this one particular day where he comes into the temple in the Spirit, and you can see his road is headed this direction. And then you have, and when the parents brought in the child Jesus to do for him according to the custom of the law, he took him up in his arms and blessed God. So you have this convergence, right? You've had all of this, the angel sightings, the leading of the Spirit, the preparation, the shepherds, all of it. That's sort of Jesus's birth story. And then over here you have this dude that the Spirit of God has met him in his prayers and said, you won't die until you get to see the one that is the Lord's Christ. And then their roads converge on this one day in Jerusalem, in the temple, and the Spirit of God is there. And it says the parents, who are the parents? I think this is referring to Mary and Joseph, don't you think? Mary, Joseph, right? When they brought him into the temple, as was the custom, he took him up. I think this is talking about Simeon. Simeon, he took him. That's talking about Jesus. Simeon took him up, Jesus, in his arms. So maybe he is one of the priests. Maybe he's a part of the ceremony. Maybe this is his day job. I don't really know. Maybe he's a regular. He's clearly well respected. He's righteous. He's devout. The Spirit of God is upon him. And he takes Jesus up into his arms and blessed God and said, we'll look at that tomorrow.